This is Lance Lee's Success in Japan, and today we're talking with Mr. Dick Cropp. He's a longtime friend of mine, and he was also Executive Director for 10 years at the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan, and the position of President at the American Club in Japan from 1990 to 1992. Let's go talk with Dick. Dick, tell me, what brought you to Japan in the first place?
I joined the Army in 1949, and Korea started in June of '50, and I was shipped out. I was just finishing a course at Colorblind Barracks, Pennsylvania. I was shipped over here to Japan for about 7 months, and then I volunteered for Korea. And after about 6 months in Korea, you were given a rest and recuperation, a rest and relaxation leave, and I came back to Japan.
What was Japan like then?
They had milk, and they had juice, and they had girls dressed right, and you didn't have to sleep in mud, and it wasn't that cold. It's just great.
And then you came back in 1960 or 62?
Well, this time I've been here since '71. So yeah, so it's going on at 34 years, 33 years, say, and then another 3 years in '61 to '64, and then another, say, 7 months in '50. But when I retired in '71, I really, I knew I wanted to come back to Japan. My wife at that time was a fashion designer, and she wanted to go to New York, and that was the last argument I ever won with her.
Okay.
So, but I didn't really come back at that time thinking I was going to live here forever. And she died in '97, and I thought, well, Dick, it's silly to be here. It's too expensive, so why don't you move? But where? Because I've been here so long. So I took 9 trips around the world. Flew around the world 9 times, stopping different places. Couldn't find any place that I really wanted to live. Not surprisingly, of course. So after the 9th trip, I came back here and I said, Dick, you're an idiot. Of course. This is the only place you know. And so now I'm very happy living here, and I'll die here.
Dick, you have been Executive Director of the American Chamber for 10 years, and you were also President of the American Club from 1990 to 1992. Tell me, how did those 2 positions come about?
When I came back to Japan because of a law and engineering degree, I went to work for a patent law firm. This was '71. And in '74, I had been semi-active in the club. In '74, somebody asked me to get on the House Committee. So I went on I didn't even know what the House Committee was. So I went on the House Committee, and as the years passed, I became chairman of the House Committee. And then in '78, I was elected to the board. And I stayed on the board 3 years as secretary and 6 years as vice president, and then the final 2 years as president. And it just kind of was a logical thing. I was executive director of the American Chamber here from 1980 to 1990.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
I was at the club with a group of Americans that we kind of palled around with, and we were at a party. And the treasurer of the American Chamber was in the group, and he said, Dick, would you like to be the executive director of the American Chamber? And I said, yeah, sure. He went back to the board, and the board decided that they'd try me for a year. And of course, at first they really liked me, obviously, because they kept on renewing my contract. But after 10 years in that kind of a position, it's time to leave, really. In fact, I told my successor, one of my successors, really 5 years is about the maximum. Because what happens, you're an employee, but you run the organization, And I know you were the president of ACCJ, but what happens is that the executive director gets to the point that he says something like, you don't want to try that, because we tried that 4 years ago and it didn't work. It was a disaster. And the members start saying, wait a minute, he's our employee. We're the members. How come he's telling us what to do? And it's just a natural thing that you want to avoid if you can.
You're still quite active in the community. You say you're retired, but I believe you still belong to quite a few organizations. What are they?
Well, I am a member of the America-Japan Society. I'm on their membership committee, and I'm also on the council, which is the top sort of legislative body. I'm with the Foreign Committee Supporting Committee of the YMCA, which raises money for disadvantaged children, and we raised 5 million yen last year, 50 million yen, and we're hoping to go to 100 million in a few more years. Of course, I'm active in the Tokyo American Club. I'm on the membership committee. I'm on the long-range planning committee.
And tell me a little bit about your TV appearances, because I know you've been on TV quite a bit here in Japan, and you've played anything from a priest to a prison guard.
My present wife, who I married 3 years after my former wife died, after about 3 months came to me and said, now she had a job herself now, so I wasn't around the house where she was getting antsy about me not being gone. She came to me and said, Dick, you can't sit around the house all day doing nothing. And I said, wait a minute, what do you mean doing nothing? I have lists that I want to accomplish and I don't get them done. And she said, well, call your friend whose whole family is in the movie television business and see what he can do for you. So I did. And he called, he gave me 2 talent agencies. And I called them up and I started to get job offers. And and then since then I've registered with 8 more talent agencies. And I don't work that much, Lance. I probably average about 5 or 6 times a month. Now, last month, the month before that, I did 9, and that's really as much as I want to do. I'm retired. Remember, I don't want to work all the time.
Tell me some of your most favorite roles.
The time I was a 4-star general, I thought that was great because I retired as a lieutenant colonel, a long way away from a 4-star general. And there's a commercial on right now where I'm sitting with 3 other people in an airplane, and there's a big crab in back of me that's doing this. And I get enough people that come up to me and say, I saw you. And doing what? And you had this crab behind you. And that's funny.
Now you have to be, Dick, one of the best dressed members of our club. Have you always been such?
Well, now, I'm going to tell you something that will surprise you. I'm colorblind.
You're colorblind?
Yes. So the thing is that my wife has to pick out shirt, tie, to match the rest of it. I pick out my own clothes, of course, but I cannot match clothes. And when I first came into the Army and was a private in South Carolina, and we'd get dressed to go downtown in civilian clothes, the guys would give me different colored socks to put on. So
there's a question I ask everyone at the end of an interview, and that is, how do you picture success in Japan?
Well, I think success in Japan is doing what you want to do, being happy and accomplishing what you want. And whether that be business or something else doesn't really matter. Just as all of life is happiness. If you are happy, that's fine. And that's going to be true in Japan. But it's especially true here because you're surrounded by people that don't speak the same language for the most part. And so it's very important that you keep yourself in such a position that you're going to be happy. So you work towards being happy, and you work towards success because of that.
And you've been watching another edition of Lance Lee's Success in Japan.